Hi there. There is a trend that has existed for the last few years that really has me completely baffled. And that is the willingness of the Suits cast to come in and kind of save or smooth things over for Megan from time to time. And so I wanted to go back and kind of just look at the whole picture of it and kind of see what maybe your thoughts might be because it's very contradictory. Very odd. So I'm going to start out here with a very short video clip of them arriving at the wedding. This is the Suits cast as they arrived at Meghan and Harry's wedding. So the Suits cast attends the wedding. Very, very thoughtful of them. They flew over from presumably either Canada or LA, depending on where they were based, all the way to the UK to go to a former coworker's wedding. And then Meghan had the nerve not to invite them to the party. I mean, just the fact that they would travel all that way just for her, they should have had an automatic invite to any of the weekend's festivities because they were making that journey and making that trip. From what I remember, the reports were that the cast ended up going out to a bar that night and ended up having a great time. I think they went to a karaoke bar. So, I mean, in the end, I don't think they suffered much for the lack of invitation to the party. But to me, that would be such a slap in the face. And at that point, I'd pretty much wipe my hands of her, especially when people who she didn't know, when it came out that people she didn't even know, George Clooney, Oprah Winfrey, all these people that Megan had never met before, were invited to the party. I mean, that right there, I personally would have been done with her if it were me. But instead, for some unknown reason, many of these cast members, and I will say mostly men, but not all, seem to, in times of public relations difficulties for Megan, they magically come out with some praise for her. It's very, very odd, I think. So let's look at it through the years and how this has kind of come about. Now, one of the first instances was this. Patrick J. Adams shares never before seen Duchess Meghan photos from Suits. And this was in September 2019. So she is a royal at this point, and this is before she publicly announces that she's pregnant. And this included a posting of that infamous couch picture. I mean, speechless, right? Like, only Meghan would think that this would be positive public relations. I mean, here she is at this time in 2019 when this is brought back out, a never before seen photo. She's a freaking royal duchess pregnant. I mean, nothing about this is good for her, for that image, for that, pure royal duchess image. I mean, the couch is dirty. I mean, everything about this is a mess. I don't even. There aren't even words for it. But to Megan, I'm sure this was a wonderful photo. This put her out there. Doesn't she look hot? Doesn't she look sexy? She would have no problem with this. But it kind of just illustrates the point that out of the blue, Patrick J. Adams is going to post this. Why? And it's just the beginning of these suspicious events. And, this one alone probably isn't, but as they start to build up, that's when you start to see this pattern. And then there was a little bit of a break, Megxit happens, everything else happens, and the Suits cast is largely pretty quiet. But it wasn't until this past year, or I think it was the end of the year last year, that there was this renewal of interest in Suits because Netflix began playing the reruns of Suits or streaming the reruns. And so all this year, it's it's as though each of them are kind of coming out bit by bit to say something. Now, it started with, the Golden Globes. You had Patrick J. Adams and Gabrielle Mack saying that they didn't have much communication with Meghan Markle. Now, from if I remember correctly, Gabriel Mack has said for a long time that he is not a big fan of Meghan Markle. He did go to the wedding though, which says something. I mean, props to him, especially if they aren't good friends, that he did it kind of as the right thing to do, because to snub her would not have been the right thing to do. It would have been sour grapes. It wouldn't have went over well. So in terms of PR, he did the right thing for him and kind of the common decency thing. Honestly, if he doesn't like her and he still did do that, like that gives me respect for him as far as anything is concerned, because it shows a strength of character. But a lot of things came out around that Golden Globes thing where I believe it was the Golden Globes that they did a little bit. Didn't they do like a Super Bowl halftime thing, and they did a bit at the Golden Globes? I think that the renewed interest in them, it makes me wonder, are they using the connection to Meghan Markle to advertise their own things, and so they're really doing it for themselves? Or is this something that Meghan is asking them to do for her?
To talk about what's happening today.
What's happening?
Suits reunion. Everywhere I look, there's a star from Suits.
That's kind of great.
Did you plan this? Are you all texting each other?
Well, when it all came through, we were all texting each other. Yes, our text thread is insane right now, so it's very exciting.
Who texted Meghan and said, you gotta come to the Golden Globes, Meghan Markle?
We don't have her number.
Yeah! That's a good one.
We just don't. So she'll see. She'll watch. She'll be happy that we're here.
Well, Gina, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You got
Thank you.
That was Gina Torres at the Golden Globes. Now, interestingly, she said none of us have her number. I mean, it seems pretty clear to me that it's not just saying that Gina doesn't have it. She's saying none of us have it. So, how come there's this kind of steady stream of them kind of hyping her up? That's what makes me think that almost it's them using her rather than her requesting it and using them. Because they know if they publish it, their names are going to get in the paper, or their names are going to get in the tabloids. And the interesting thing is Meghan really can't refute it, because in order to kind of question it or kind of call them out for doing it, she would have to admit that she has nothing to do with them because they all hate her. So it backs her into a corner. She has no choice but to accept that they are doing it, if they are doing it for themselves. But there are more. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's not stopping, right? So there's more instances of this. And it seems, like I said, to have started this year, more so than in the past. Next up, we have in February. Now, during the wedding, one of Meghan's co-stars, Rick Hoffman, he was caught in a questionable, with a questionable expression on his face. Now, I would say, allegedly, in my opinion, this expression is a bit of, what is this farce? That's the impression I get from looking at the expression on his face. And given the fact that they weren't invited to the party, I kind of wouldn't blame him if he was kind of like, this is just a freaking joke. Especially if they knew Meghan very well and they would have kind of suspected how this was going to turn out. So that's the impression that this photo gave off, and there was a lot of commentary about that at the time. So why now, 6 years later, in February, did this come out? And don't forget to put this into the context of Meghan will always clap back. She doesn't care if it's 6 years after the wedding. This is out there, and this is negative against her. And so she's going to want to make sure she can set the record straight in some way. I.e., apples don't fall far from trees, and the whole Thomas Markle Jr. of it all. It always has to be a clap back. And every criticism has to be answered. They can't just let it hang, even if it takes 6 years. So Suits' Rick Hoffman reveals the smelly reason for his viral moment at Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's wedding. Hoffman revealed during a conversation on Chicks in the Office that his reaction was a response to smelling something terrible and foul. That was February 15th, 2024. Now, that also puts to bed, supposedly or theoretically, the criticism that, so this, covers up for that photo on the one hand, and it also explains away the rumor that Megan wanted to have air fresheners brought in from, she didn't like the smell of St. George's Chapel, historical buildings. You're one of the few people on the planet entitled to get married there, and you're going to complain about it. I mean, obviously that was not good optics. And as that story was out there, she has to respond to it. And so she got him to say, hey, this was because I smelled something bad because the church just smelled horrible. Please, come on. There were so many freaking flowers there that day. You wouldn't have been able to smell anything but them. Not to mention all the people. Please, ridiculous. Just to come up 6 years later, I mean, if you ask me, it's just utterly absurd. But it's not done yet. So then we have, in June 2024, we have this. We have here June 23rd, 2024. Here's what Meghan Markle's Suits co-star had to say about her relationship with husband Prince Harry, always looking out for her. And this was Wendell Pierce, who, if I remember correctly, he played Rachel Zane's father on the series. I haven't really watched it, so I don't really know, but that's the rumor I hear. But what he ends up saying in this article is essentially, don't let him hurt you, trying to play on he played her father in the show, so he's being fatherly, maybe. I don't know. But again, the timing is very interesting, isn't it? That this was right before Thomas Markle's birthday. So is this being put out there in order to have Meghan Markle father fixing the algorithm so that when Meghan Markle father comes up, this is one of the hits? Not saying it's going to erase anything that Thomas Markle Sr. would have said around the time of her birthday. It's not going to trump that, but it's going to be out there in the algorithm, and it's going to have beaten the conversations about, Thomas Markle Sr.'s birthday. I just think it's all very strategic. There's no coincidence here that it's the person who played her father coming out right before her father's birthday. And that's why one of the main reasons why I don't think that it's the Suits cast using her is because they seem to be doing it. They're stepping in and kind of helping her out. And I don't know why they would. God knows I wouldn't. But up until this point, notice it's the men that are doing it, not the women. But that's going to change, but we'll get there. Well, it says right there in the headline, this was September 30th, so just a couple days ago, Meghan Markle's sweet gesture resurfaces after bullying allegations. Now, this is Sarah Rafferty, who is the redheaded co-star on the show. Now, this is something resurfacing, so it's important to note that Sarah Rafferty is not currently saying this about Meghan. And that's something that's very interesting because Rick Hoffman, he said that on a podcast interview. Wendell Pierce, he said that in an interview. Patrick J. Adams is saying it in interviews. The women aren't. And in this case, even this is something that is resurfacing from years ago. So currently, Sarah Rafferty is not coming to her aid. This is something that likely the squad or likely her PR are dredging it back up and putting it out there again, and then the squaddies go ahead and they disseminate it so it becomes a quote-unquote new viral thing. Very much so planted to become viral. That's the purpose, one of the purposes of the Sussex Squad, is that they can automatically make these things go viral for Meghan. And this is clearly meant to combat the bullying allegations. Meghan Markle showed her supportive side, and once she did this once turned up at a struggling co-star's house with a gift of scones, according to a newly resurfaced interview. And that, to me, is very important. They are resurfacing this. Sarah Rafferty isn't coming out last week and saying what a wonderful person Meghan Markle is. Probably, allegedly, in my opinion, doesn't really think she is a nice person. Suits actor Sarah Rafferty said Meghan showed up and saved her when Sarah was struggling to balance motherhood and a grueling filming schedule. The video clip where Sarah shares Megan's gesture comes from an interview with the pair in 2014, so a very long time ago, and comes amid allegations that Megan's staff are terrified of her. Well, you cannot compare her coworker, Sarah Rafferty, who was actually a star on the show, unlike Megan, to how she treats her underlings. I'm sorry, there's no comparison there. I have no doubt Megan treats anyone in a higher position from her at that time, because of course she never expects that she will remain below them, but anybody above her, she's going to be sweet as pie and just fantastic, a darling, no doubt. The Duchess of Sussex's team recently mounted a rearguard action defending her to Us Weekly, following claims in the Hollywood Reporter that she was like a dictator in high heels. Skipping over parts of it that really aren't necessarily. Basically, that's it. She showed up with some treats, some breakfast treats for her. The clip was liked 3,400 times and viewed 54,000 times after it was posted with the message, "This is the real Meghan Markle, the kind, generous friend who shows up with scones for you and your kids after a long day." The pair were co-stars on Suits at the time and conducted a joint interview to promote the show, which was broadcast by AfterBuzz TV. So they're telling you right there, this was originally part of a greater marketing strategy for the show. Sarah said, "I'll give you an example. I was working till 4:30 in the morning on a Friday night, and my husband was traveling for business. And on Saturday morning at 7:30, right about 20 minutes after the kids woke up, my front doorbell rings, and it's Megan with scones and Starbucks." Yeah, you know what? Maybe what she should have done was skip the Starbucks, say, "You go back to bed, I'll take care of the kids." But I'm guessing that didn't happen. But you can see here that this is going to be delivered in a context where Sarah Rafferty is promoting her show. She's promoting her, not that she's promoting herself here, but it's in her best interest to, say something nice. I mean, she's not going to be a nasty person about it. So instead, she's like, "Yeah, I'll throw her a bone and say, she did this." But the fact that they're resurfacing it now is because they got nothing else to say. They have no other way to combat this bullying nonsense now that it's from not only the UK, and by bullying nonsense, I'm not saying the story is nonsense. I'm saying it's absolutely ridiculous that Meghan is still able to get away with it. But it's been in the UK, now it's in the US. They can't blame it on anyone in the US like they blamed it on the palace in the UK. And so now they really need to kind of combat this narrative. I really don't even know why they're bothering, but hey, whatever floats their boat. And now you have Meghan Markle's Suits co-star Patrick J. Adams reveals what she was like when they first met. Patrick J. Adams starred alongside Meghan Markle in Suits. No, he starred in Suits. She was an extra. But the pair first met before they were cast on the hit legal drama as they filmed a terrible, terrible pilot. And this was just October 3rd. And in it, he says, "We had such great chemistry. It was kismet that she was going to be cast." I mean, it's so ridiculous. But I mean, obviously the two had to have decent chemistry because they were the big couple on the show. But, here it is again. It's Patrick saying it currently. None of the women are saying things currently. The only recent thing that a woman that she worked with was Gina Torres, and her saying, "We just don't have her number." But clearly Patrick J. Adams might have her number, or Wendell Pierce or Rick Hoffman, because they're willing to kind of, put it out there that Meghan put out a positive PR spin on Meghan. Very interesting to me. I'm not going to go over the whole article. I'm just going to hit on a couple of the highlights. They were to develop, and the they is Meghan and Patrick J. Adams, were to develop a close bond after appearing in 7 seasons of Suits together, but that's not exactly where they first met. Patrick revealed, "Meghan and I had done a pilot before, a terrible, terrible pilot together." And sparking a co-star, Sarah Rafferty, on their Sidebar podcast, Patrick explained there was a setting up of a romantic relationship in that particular pilot too, and then we never saw each other again. The pilot failed, it was terrible, and went away. So we had never seen each other or spoken to each other again. It's unfortunate that you can't see me because I'm rolling my eyes at this point. Patrick explained how they next saw each other at the callbacks. Recalling their first conversation after reconnecting, he said, "I was there because I was the first to be cast for the show. So when I went in to do the chemistry reads with Rachel, she was right there." Interesting. Is he referring to Rachel Zane or referring to Megan as Rachel? And she said, hi. And I went, oh my God, good to see you. He said they both managed to relax around one another thanks to their previous work together. Patrick gushed over Megan as he said, it was just clear that we had an easygoing thing when we went into that room. And it was pretty clear, if I remember correctly, that she was gonna get the part from the minute that we did the chemistry read. It was just so much easier than it was with anybody else. I'm sure his wife loves hearing that. We make the joke a lot that Megan keeps going back to the dish soap commercial because she really doesn't have anything else. Well, it's kind of the same with Suits. When she runs into trouble, she goes back to Suits because that's the only time she's worked in her life that she has anybody who's willing to step up and kind of, defend her. God knows Howie Mandel hasn't. I mean, he made his feelings about her pretty clear, and I don't blame him, given the way she kind of, bit the hand that fed her there on the Deal or No Deal thing. But, it just seems that this is the well she keeps going back to. And what I don't get is why they do it. I mean, why would they? Once she kind of snubbed them at the wedding and kind of relegated them to second tier status, I wouldn't do anything for her. So what? Does she have something on them, or are they doing it because in the end, for example, most recently, Patrick J. Adams is really just advertising his podcast. And by talking about her, he knows it's going to get in the papers. Who knows? But I just think the whole thing is rather odd. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
Dancing in